can't remember a time when I didn't hate myself. It's a truth that haunts me every day, a ghost that pokes at my heart, my mind. See, here's the thing with depression. It creeps up on you. It might be slow at first, but when it hits you, it chokes you until you cannot breathe. Strange, really, how it felt like just months ago I was fine, and now I feel like I'm drowning. But depression doesn't always come slow. No, it can crash upon you like a wave when you're least expecting it. It started with the small things, sleeping in a little later, eating a little less, feeling drowsy, tired, and unmotivated, feeling different emotions for no reason at all. Things I brushed off like nothing. Now, it's days in bed. Now it's entire meals skipped. Now it's a messy house. Now it's numbness. My phone rings. It's 1 p.m. and I'm burrowed beneath a pile of blankets. I really don't want to pick up that call. I just want to go and close my eyes and shut off the buzz of the world. I give myself a quick peek at my phone, and my gut twists when I see it reads, Mom. I still hesitate. I just want to go back to bed. Why are all these people bothering me? I feel guilty though. My mother is probably worried, and I haven't even looked at my phone in 3 days. As I reluctantly rise, I numbly gather that I am sitting in a room that reeks of rotten food, with piles of laundry rising like towers around me, and somehow I do not care. I don't remember when there was a time that I did. Hi, Mom, I say weakly. My voice cracks with days of unuse. Her soft, troubled voice makes me wince. She asks if I'm okay. She asks if I've eaten. She asks if the house is cleaned. I answer shortly to everything. One-word responses, and I think that troubles her even more, though I can't know for sure. I'm not quite sure of anything these days. I expect her to ask me these questions, to be concerned for me. It surprises me a little, though, when her voice turns hard, and she says, "You used to be so much more. Now, it's like you are nothing." Hurt comes in a wave that shocks me, for it is one of the starkest feelings I have felt in a very, very long time. It hurts me because she is right, because it is a truth so harsh that strips and reveals me. 2 months ago, I was on the verge of promotion in my career, in a healthy relationship, and surrounded by supportive friends. Now, I grieve for the life I had. I haven't talked to my partner or friends in days. Work emails flood my inbox, and I surely lost that promotion that I worked so hard to get. It surprises me that this all makes me mourn the life I had. I expect to bury myself back under the sheets of my bed and live the rest of my day away from the world. Instead, though, I find myself peeling back the covers, my feet touching the floor, then walking to the kitchen. I take one look at the kitchen, dishes piled up high, food scattered all over the counter, and for the first time in weeks, I feel something like a spark festering in my mind, telling me to clean that dish, wipe down the counters. So I spend the next hour cleaning my kitchen. My mind is still a little numb, but it gives me hope when slowly some of the wheels start turning in my head once again. When the kitchen is spotless, gleaming in a way it hasn't before, I feel so very proud of myself. My eyes shift next to the messy living room, but suddenly the thought of cleaning it overwhelms me. So I think baby steps, and end the day with a small smile on my face. Hope, at last, takes root in my heart. I say to myself, thank you for cleaning up. Thank you for knowing your limits. Thank you for trying. The next morning, I convince myself that staying in bed would just be easier. I can feel the momentary high from accomplishing something yesterday wearing off. That numbness is in my mind again, and I just feel so tired. I have no motivation to get up, and I hate myself a little as I give in to my wants and go back to bed. I feel guilty and like a failure when I spend the day again burrowed beneath my sheets, avoiding the world. I feel frozen. I feel distant. So much self-hatred burns through me, but I don't have the energy to do anything about it. I feel so many things, but I just can't get up. The next day, I decide it's a new morning with new possibilities. Guilt and remorse still churn in me for wasting a day, but I know I can atone for it by making the most of this one. I make my bed. I even get ready to go for a walk, which I haven't done in months. Just as I'm about to leave, I notice a slip of paper on the counter and recognize it as my therapist's phone number. The thought of calling her scares me, but I don't even think of it as I slip it into my pocket. The sky is blue, the breeze gentle. It washes out my mind, clears it out, and suddenly I feel sharp in a way I haven't been in a long time. For a while, I just walk, just me and the open sky. And I cannot remember the last time I felt so focused, so sure. Soon, I let my hand reach for the paper with the faded phone number. I stop and stare at it, and for a moment, fear and logic war in my mind. Speaking my feelings and being so vulnerable has always scared me, though I know it is an essential step if I want to have my life back. So I stop as I dial the number. Her voice, calm in its way, floods my ears and relaxes me. She has her way of doing that, her voice alone able to take a weight off my shoulders. So right then and there, under the shade of a tree, I pour my heart out to this person who listens and understands. I always feel guilty for burdening others with my issues, but it feels good to at least feel like I'm not so alone. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that some will support your recovery and some will not. Some people don't understand how long it really is, that it contains ups and downs. When I go to speak with my mom, she does not understand. She looks frustrated and says, "But you used to be so happy. Just be happy again." It's so hard to tell her that it doesn't work like that because she just doesn't understand mental health very well. It's hard to fight those tears, and I know I shouldn't let my anger get the best of me, but I do. I yell at her, "Why can't you just understand? You make everything worse." And I storm away, my mind a flurry of emotions. Doesn't she know I'm trying my best? That night, I crawl into bed and my mind replays every word I said to my mother. I feel so many things: anger, regret, repulsion. It's too much. My breathing quickens, I feel lightheaded, and my palms become sweaty. I feel like everything is about to come crashing down, and for a moment, I think I should welcome it. It's difficult to feel like a burden. Most of my days, I contemplate what a terrible daughter I am and what a terrible friend I am, especially after my fight with my mom. I feel useless. I must be such a hard person to be around. I just can't stop feeling guilty because I make everyone's lives so complicated. I often feel like a boulder and my peers are forced to drag this weight around. I'm so sick of feeling that way, like someone they have to be careful around. Through my struggles, I try to remember everything my therapist said, that every day is a new chance, a new day. I shouldn't waste it over one moment. So I start doing the things I love again: painting, reading, gardening. They calm my mind and, above all, make me so happy. They rekindle a passion that I knew was always there, but just tucked away. I realized bringing back the things I love is important because it reminds me that there is just so much to live for. Life can be so very beautiful if you look in the right places. I also begin to be kinder to myself. Instead of punishing myself for every fault, every flaw, I begin to see the small beauties of life once again. They aren't major, huge things, but then again, most beautiful things rarely are. It's a cool breeze on a hot day. It's homemade cookies and lemonade. It's music that calms my mind. These things I treasure in my heart as it begins to heal from the damage it went through. It has been 2 weeks. 2 weeks of days when I have felt on top of the world and days when it has come crashing down. Today, I step into work. They tell me the inevitable, that I've lost my promotion and that I will have to work to earn it back. It hits me all at once. I knew what was coming, I really did, but hearing those words out loud was like a blow to my heart. I thought that I was ready to move on, that I had been doing so great in my recovery, that I was strong enough. I think what hurts the most is that this proves that I'm not. Feelings flood into me. I suddenly feel like I can't do this, like it's so much all at once. So I do what I told myself not to do. I walked away. At first, I feel incredibly guilty and hated that I walked away. I feel like a failure. I feel like everything my mom told me I was. Nothing. Simply a burden to everyone I meet. Why can't I be better? Why can't I be smarter? Why can't I be more adaptable? These questions haunt me for a few days. I feel myself falling back into familiar habits after this one setback, and I hate that above all. It takes me a while to come to terms with the fact that I'm just not ready to go back to work, that healing can take a while, and I have to let that happen before anything else. It's been a few months, and in these months, so much has happened. The major difference I made is that I began to remind myself of how I felt when I had those beautiful days, how I felt fulfilled, and how I would think, I want this to last forever. It took me a while to realize that this feeling could last forever if I wanted it to. And that is when my life changed. That being said, if I said that my recovery has been a smooth, easy process, I would be lying to you. It was, in fact, hard and unpredictable and strange, as any transition in your life might be. Of course, still, some days are so much better than the last, filled with all those pockets of peace and beauty. Others are filled with exhaustion and blankness, tears and numbness. No one claimed it was to be easy or smooth. No, it's filled with tears and grief and everything in between. But maybe there's some beauty in that process too. It's my last year of high school. I've always been someone who thrived at school, an overachiever, well known by many and favored by the teachers. Today, I sit with my closest friends and everything is perfect. It feels like any other regular senior day, until my friend asks me, "What do you want to do after high school?" I freeze. I freeze because I have no idea what to say. I've always run away from the thought of going beyond high school. The unknown scares me. It's like leaping from one cliff to another, but I wonder if I would even make the jump. If I would just fall through instead. So I make up some lie and say, I want to be a doctor. We end up spending the rest of lunch sharing updates on our grades and how some have already gotten acceptance letters from their favorite universities. I'm not completely present though. And I start to think, what if I don't get into the programs I want? What if I'm not good enough or smart enough? So when I get home, I mindlessly get to work. I open all of my textbooks and homework and organize my space so it is perfect, not a pencil or paper out of line. My mind tells me that success starts with a perfectly tidy space. I look at my desk and it looks visually perfect, but my mind steers towards darker thoughts, telling me that if I'm not successful, my family will suffer because I cannot support them. I realize that I fear this above all. Sometimes my family is all I have. They've done so much for me, and I feel if I can't support them for their needs, I will be incomplete in some way. It also tells me that I have to double check that I have everything I need from my backpack, even though I know I do, because if I leave anything out, I will fail. Next, it whispers to me, reorganize those markers. It's not good enough as it is. So I do. and when I think I've organized my space enough, it convinces me that I haven't, and I organize it again. I find that I'm obsessed with chasing this idea of perfection, even though I know in the back of my mind it is not possible. It's an exhausting, strenuous cycle. And in the end, I've accomplished close to nothing and am no closer to calming or relaxing my mind. Later, I invite my friends to my house. I haven't spent much time with them these past few days and I miss them. When they come into my room, I expect to loosen up and enjoy my time, but for some reason I coil back up as one friend sits at my desk poking at my organized pens. Another flops right onto my bed, crumpling the smooth sheets. One of them plays with the items on my dresser, accidentally dropping my belongings on the floor. The sight of them in my space, touching and messing up my things makes me feel a little crazy and violated. It makes me feel like everything in my brain that I worked so hard to keep neat for hours is once again scattered within minutes. Clean it, my mind screams. Clean it or else someone might hurt themselves. So I do as my mind says, trailing after them and cleaning in their wake, trying to undo the mess they made. As I'm cleaning, I notice my friends laughing at me. "Why are you being so uptight?" they say. "You are so boring now." I know I should ignore their comments. Logically, I know that I've just started to be like this, so precise about the space I live in, my mind constantly racing and thinking. This change they see in me must be confusing for them. I should try to explain what's going on in my head, but can't they see how much of a mess they're making, that someone might hurt themselves, might slip and fall? Who are they to tell me I'm boring when I'm trying to help them? Their ignorance makes me angry. It leaves me feeling confused, so instead of bottling it all up, I yell at them. I tell them that I'm not the problem and that they are. I tell them that they are horrible friends. I watch as their faces fall into hurt, confusion, and shock. Suddenly my palms are sweaty and I feel a little dizzy. My heart is racing and my breath comes quickly. "Just go," I manage to say. They run out of my room, but this attack that I'm feeling doesn't stop. I barely notice when my knees buckle and I slide to the floor. It feels like I can't breathe and time has stopped. My thoughts race. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? It's all I can think. What if they hate me forever? What if they never forgive me? What if? I close my eyes and try to steady my breathing. It is so very hard to calm myself because I feel frozen and numb. When I try to sleep, more thoughts begin to bombard my head and my thoughts steer in a slightly different direction. I wonder if I locked the door. I fear if I didn't, someone might break in and hurt my family. I wonder if I should sanitize my room because there might be germs that will make me sick. I start to become hyper aware of everything I do physically. My breathing, my blinking, my heartbeat. All these thoughts are my only company as I fight for sleep. I thought that my panic attack would be a pivotal moment and cure this craze, this obsession I have with being perfect. I thought it would take away these intrusive thoughts. Instead, it only made it worse. Not only do I spend my days thinking about my grades and university, but now also about the well-being of my friends and how I've hurt them in irreparable ways. I think that every small misstep in my life will hurt those around me. I also start to become very aware of everything I do. For instance, I could be eating dinner, something so simple, and become very aware of my chewing, and I wonder if I'm chewing correctly or not. It also comes to a point where my intrusive thoughts are automatic. They don't need an external trigger, they constantly exist in my mind. I just can't stop thinking. It has been a few weeks. I haven't seen my friends in what feels like forever. They have called me and texted me, but I'm far too distracted. I spend my days cleaning my room and satisfying those intrusive thoughts in my head. One morning, my little sister came into my room with some breakfast in bed. At first, I thought it was nice of her, until she spilt the orange juice on my cleaned floors. I was absolutely livid. I spent so much of my time keeping my space clean and she just ruined it. So I screamed at her. I told her to take her breakfast somewhere else, and I watched her face crumple and eyes fill with tears, but all I could see was the juice on the ground, and I didn't care that I hurt her feelings at all. It takes a while, months even, to realize that this is too much for me alone to bear. My thoughts drown and prevent me from sleeping. They also distract me from school, and my grades drop. I cannot live like this. Reluctantly, I seek the help of my grandmother, someone I trust fully. I tell her everything I've been going through these last few months and how my mind just won't stop turning. I tell her it sends me visions of these intrusive thoughts and tells me to keep everything perfect, and that it feels like I'm not in control of my mind, and that I hate it. My grandmother says that getting help could change my life. So we find professionals and doctors that can help me. At first, I felt like I was completely alone in my differences, that I was alone in these intrusive thoughts and obsessive tendencies. It felt like a relief when the doctors tell me that many people suffer from the same mental illness I have, OCD. I start visiting an exposure therapist who helps me overcome the harsh ways of my OCD. The therapist helps me face some of my greatest fears. She makes me exist in a messy room in a situation that I can't control. The first few weeks are awful. Forcibly living in a scattered environment makes me feel vulnerable and unsteady. I feel like everything is spiraling out of control too fast, and I just cannot keep up with it. With perseverance, though, I'm able to learn how to coexist with these imperfections, and with time, I learned that I'm starting to become okay with that. It turns out they were right. With therapy, I learn how to manage and control the compulsions I feel. The thoughts in my head don't run as fast, so now I'm not so fearful of every little thing all the time. It feels like I finally have some control over my mind. I'm even finally able to get back on track with school and my friends. I tell them about how I've been struggling with OCD, and they don't laugh or tell me I'm boring. They understand. I'm able to go to the mall, go out to dinner, and overall be more social without worrying so much about every little thing. And what a relief that is. It finally feels like I'm in control of my life. Something I haven't felt in a long, long time. This is the story of how Sai discovered his friend had narcissistic behavior and the surprising lesson he learned about self-love. Sai has just changed high schools because of his mom's new job, and Sarah was the first to be nice to him. He remembers it like yesterday. He was used to his small town and tiny school back home, but this school was terrifyingly different, with 500 kids per grade. But Sarah was the one who looked him right in the eye, smiled, and invited him to sit with her when nobody else had. She has it all together. Perfect grades, perfect clothes, the latest technology, and friends who idolize her. She would say that when you love yourself, you attract abundance in your life. And Sai was fascinated by that. They immediately become close, bonding over their shared love of anime, Harry Styles, and trying to stop self-sabotaging their happiness and practice self-love. They hang out every day, but things start to change for the worse a few weeks into their friendship, and Sai worries he has misjudged Sarah. It all changed when Sai visits Sarah at work. During calculus, Sarah begs Sai to come to see her at the local coffee shop she works at. She pleads that her shift is boring, that the people there are toxic, and that she needed him. Sai agrees and goes to visit her during her break that evening. He waves through the glass as he approaches the door, but Sarah didn't wave back and looks away. When Sai sees her standing at the till, she looks up at him with annoyance and asks why he would come to her work. Sai is so caught off guard by her response that he doesn't know how to react. He holds back tears and apologizes before quickly walking away. As he walks off, he hears Sarah giggling with her coworker, whispering about how embarrassing and tragic Sai is, and why he has nothing better to do than stalk her. The next day at school, Sai knows he has to face Sarah in homeroom. Sarah strolls in confidently and unbothered as always. She starts to talk to Sai as if nothing had happened as they prep for their English presentation. She confesses that she hasn't read the book and asks Sai to lead the book summary and Q&A. But she reassures him they'll be fine because she's read the Cliff Notes. Sai agrees as he couldn't lose marks on this assignment and needs to keep his grades up for the class. Plus, he has already done all the work. The presentation goes off without a hitch. Their teacher, Mr. Jacobs, compliments them on their work, especially on the creativity and insight displayed on their poster board. Sarah proudly thanks Mr. Jacobs, bragging that Sai didn't want to do a poster board, but she was happy to do it. Mr. Jacobs smiles and then talks about where they could have improved. Sarah replies before Sai could speak and throws Sai under the bus, explaining that Sai didn't finish his part. The teacher then looks at Sai and tells him how he expected more from him. Sai runs home, avoiding the bus as he can't spend one more minute with Sarah. As he gets home and opens his phone, an article from Twitter pops up. People who practice self-love acknowledge their flaws and are thankful for who they are. Narcissists display the opposite behavior. Narcissists believe that no one will bring them contentment simply because they need constant recognition and admiration. Connected Family Services. Sai feels comforted after reading that and feels bad for Sarah. Her insistent need to be admired by everyone, how she humiliated him and never apologized, as she took credit for his work. It all started to make sense. She wasn't practicing self-love, she was being selfish, and that was the difference. What would you have done if you were Sai? Let us know in the comments, and until next time, remember, don't ever believe that you only matter because someone else doesn't. Everyone matters, including you. Have you ever been treated rudely by a stranger? Or maybe you're surrounded by a rude or toxic environment. Perhaps you have experienced your family member, significant other, or friends behaving rudely in front of you. This is exactly what happened to Nancy. Meet Nancy.
Hello.
Nancy is a bright, cheerful college student who is also working a part-time job in her school's convenience store. Her close friends describe her as a glass half full kind of girl, hardworking, extremely courteous, and polite. But her friends worry. They say her extreme politeness can take a toll on her emotional well-being. Rude people can sometimes take advantage of her strength and behave improperly in her presence. Oh no. So how does she respond to these rudely behaving fellas? Let's find out, shall we? One fine afternoon while working her part-time job in the convenience store of her college, a young lady walks up to the counter. She plops a can of energy drink and tuna sandwiches onto it, all the while frantically looking for something in her sling bag.
Excuse me, did you forget to bring your card? You can scan using the college app if you've downloaded it inside your phone.
Nancy said politely. The woman rolls her eyes.
And what makes you think I brought my phone?
The customer raises her voice. Nancy is taken aback by her snarky remark. She then remembers what her mother has always taught her, to be empathetic towards people, even if they might seem rude to you. So this is the time she can use her power of empathy. She decides not to take the rudeness personally and just let it go. The woman storms off, leaving the drink and sandwiches on the counter unpaid.
Maybe she's having a bad day and is projecting that upset feeling to the world.
Nancy thought to herself. She feels quite calm and assured when she does not let the negative behavior affect her emotion. As they say, rudeness begets rudeness and is contagious. So yes, dearest Psych2Goers, one tip when encountering a rude person is to break the cycle of rudeness by choosing to empathize and be kind. Moving along, do you know what happened when Nancy had to prepare a presentation along with 2 other group mates the other day? Meet Will and Amber, the school's hotshot couple. They were Nancy's group mates. Unfortunately, both of them contributed very little to the preparations. Nancy was the one always arranging a meeting to discuss what they should do regarding the presentation, and most of the time, the couple would bail out. They said they're too busy with their other classes, so they always postpone the discussion. The class presentation was in 2 days, so Nancy decided to send the couple one last text in the group chat, inviting them to complete the slides together with her in the library. They ignored her invitation, so Nancy proceeded to looking for information and doing the slides all by herself. And that is how she spent the whole weekend. Finally, after finishing up the slides, she logs onto her Instagram only to find it filled with pictures of the star couple's Saturday date. Outraged, she then remembered reading an article a while ago on how to behave when someone is rude towards you. It said one of the ways is to count to 10 and take a few deep breaths. So she did that.
1, 2, 3.
Nancy counted, taking a few deep breaths in between. She asked herself,
Is it really worth losing my cool over this?
Nancy decided that it's a waste of her emotional energy to let this get under her skin. She lets it go, since she doesn't want the situation to take up too much room in her life. 2 days later, the group presentation turns out quite well. The professor compliments the slide presentation, stating that the designs and bullet point information is very engaging to the audience. Hearing the compliment, Nancy is elated and feels appreciated. However, her bubble of joy bursts when Will says,
Thanks to my dearest Amber working very hard for the presentation. Without her, these slides would be super dull.
Do I spot another rude and disrespectful behavior? Psych2Goers, here's another tip. When you're dealing with disrespectful people, you need to summon up your courage. Always trust your gut instincts and intellect. Whether you want the situation to roll off your back and not fight back, or put your foot down and make it clear that you won't tolerate any more rude behavior, you need to know when to be assertive and speak up, and when to just ignore rude behavior.
This is unfair.
Nancy thought to herself.
I spent a whole lot of time finding the information and making the slides all by myself, and now someone else is gonna take the credit for it? They're being rude and disrespectful towards myself and the time that I'd spent making the presentation.
So, that's what made Nancy stand up in the lecture hall.
Dr. James.
She addresses her professor.
I am their group mate. I'm the one who spent my whole Saturday making the presentation.
Leaving Will and Amber shocked, Nancy continued.
I designed everything and even edited the video that was played at the beginning of the presentation. The only thing that they were involved in is to attend the class and present from the notes I made on what to say and highlighted during the presentation.
She also wanted to spill the beans about them lying to her and ignoring her when she asked for a discussion regarding the presentation and having fun instead. But she thought that what she'd said was already enough to let people know that it was her doing the gritty work behind the scenes, and she won't let people like Amber or Will take away the appreciation from her.
Okay, Nancy, thank you for letting me know.
Dr. James then continues.
Will, Amber, I'll need to see you after class. Nancy, I'll see you separately, and we'll let you know.
Dr. James asked to meet Nancy 2 days later. He asked her some questions and clarified things with her. Dr. James said that this will not affect their carry marks in any way since the presentation is judged collectively as a group.
I appreciate you standing up for yourself,
Dr. James said.
I hope this experience will teach you more about yourself and how to deal with others, and you did a really good job with the presentation. Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy feels appreciated. She feels ever so grateful to have a supporting lecturer like Dr. James. She walks back home with a light heart and a skip in her step. After all, there is a way to stand in the face of rudeness without resorting to it yourself. Have you ever encountered a person behaving rudely towards you? How did you respond to them? Now that you have some tips and advice from Nancy, let us know in the comments below. You're not the same person I thought I knew. You've changed. Let's end this.
He hurled these painful words to me one day. The words were a weapon that ground me to dust. The love of my 3-year-long relationship was suddenly nothing but ashes. One short breath could make it disappear. I could hear my heart breaking. My emotions were churning, switching from pleading for answers. Why can't he try harder to make our relationship work? To the anger of betrayal. That jerk. He should be more understanding. Crying used to be a healthy, occasional cleansing release for me, but now it had become an unwanted habit for me. Day by day, I was imprisoned in the darkest corner of my mind. My daily routine consisted of lying in bed the whole day, filled with endless, mindless scrolling through social media. Every time I would happen upon photos of my friends with their significant others, I'd find myself crying again. I felt changed. Instead of being happy for them like I was before, I felt envious. I couldn't help but think, maybe I did change. Maybe it's true that it's my fault our relationship ended. I understood I needed help and sought therapy, which was good, but it wasn't enough. So I turned to my closest friends for support. Yes, those same friends I found myself envying. Then came the wave of guilt. I cleared all of my friends from my social media. I removed myself from my closest friends' chat group. The envy that built up inside of me made me feel unworthy of my friends' love. I felt I was a burden. One of them seemed to confirm this thought when she said, "You're not trying hard enough not to be depressed. You're just draining the life out of our friend group. Just snap out of it." I lashed out when she said that. I even turned down each of my friends who reached out to me. I was crushed by yet another wave of sadness. I found myself being stuck in a vicious loop of sadness, anger, and guilt, and feeling unworthy of love. I isolated myself from the world. Even though I was the one who turned them away, it felt like all my closest friends distanced themselves from me. I began to really believe that I was a burden, that I had become the person who leeches from everyone for attention. I felt like I was some egomaniacal lost cause, whom everyone had left because of this awful change. Then one day my therapist told me something that switched some sort of release in me. They said, "The constant fact in life is change." This nudged me to think of my situation from a different perspective. Maybe instead of this being an ending with nowhere to go, this was a turning point in my life. Perhaps this lowest point is a stepping stone to change. A change for the better. Depression puts you through a dark and lonely journey. To those who have lost all their emotional support, to those who are still battling depression, to those who feel like life is meaningless, I want you to know that you're not alone, and you deserve to be loved and cherished. You are not a burden. You are not a mistake. You are important.